and also Dr. Anna Snaith, who is editing our next volume, The Years, are both here tonight if anyone would like to discuss these or any other aspects of the edition over drinks later on. In a project of this size, there are many, many people to whom Jane and I owe an immense debt of gratitude. Colleagues, family, friends, institutions, the AHRC, scholars from many different domains, librarians, archivists, rights holders, our publishers, our wonderful copy editor Penny Mullock, our editorial board, have all played an invaluable part and are included in our written acknowledgements. Here, Jane and I would publicly like to thank two people without whose dedication and expertise this edition would have taken not 1 decade, but 2. Our AHRC-funded researchers, Dr. Ian Blythe and Dr. Jim Stewart. And Dr. Jim Stewart is with us, I'm pleased to say, tonight. When Jane, Ray and I first began talking about a Cambridge Woolf edition, and it was something like 12 years ago, I think, there was one name that sprang immediately to mind, that of Professor Dame Gillian Beer. We were delighted when Gillian agreed to become a member of our editorial board, and we are equally delighted that she can be with us tonight to launch our first 2 volumes. Gillian was for many years a fellow of Girton College, Cambridge, appropriately enough one of the venues for the lecture that became Woolf's essay, A Room of One's Own. In 1994, Gillian was appointed King Edward VII Professor of English Literature at Cambridge, and in the same year became president of Clare Hall there. Her book publications include a groundbreaking study of Victorian fiction in the light of Darwin's theory of evolution, entitled Darwin's Plots, studies of George Meredith and George Eliot, a book on science and culture, and of particular interest to Woolf scholars, a landmark collection of essays, Virginia Woolf, The Common Ground. It gives me great pleasure to invite Gillian to speak to you now. Thank you.
Well, it is always an enormous pleasure to think about Woolf and talk about her. I find that even with all the distractions and troubles that beset her, she has this power to make you happy as you read her, as you think about her. And that's certainly something that I've always experienced when I have been in contact with her mind, that there is something both grotesque and elegant in the way she will set sentences grating against each other. And it's a kind of grotesquerie and elegance that takes us forward into the 20th century. It takes us past modernism, past postmodernism, I think, as well, into something which she's always willing to try something new on the reader. That is, each of us as we read experiences, I think, Woolf anew. And I think we're here, after all, to celebrate her writing, which is realised anew in the Cambridge edition and is always persisting. Just as I arrived, I was kindly given a copy of The Waves and a copy of Between the Acts in this elegant new edition, and I felt that I really ought to be reading from that, but I'm not going to. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Because I'd like to bring the writing of Woolf right into the centre of the celebration that we're having. And so what I'm going to do is to read a passage from The Waves, one of the edition's first 2 volumes, of course. It's a passage, I think, that shows her work at its limber best, rippling across moods and working through a particular consciousness. Percival, in this passage, is dead. Rhoda is walking in Oxford Street. Rhoda, so disgusted by the human. She turns aside and enters what is plainly Wigmore Hall, I think. In fact, I'm quite sure it is. Because Woolf is always alert to how experience is subtly charged, changed, made by just where it happens. Southampton Row, or Fleet Street, the Strand, or St James's Park. Each lends a different timbre to the inquiry of the mind, of the body that is engaging with that place. And so does Wigmore Hall here. The passage opens a savage comedy, bloated bodies and privilege. Then, as the music starts up, quite different urgencies appear. So what I'm going to do, and rather shamingly, I'm going to read it from my own edition that I edited back in 1992 when she briefly came out of copyright, as did Joyce, and then was plunged back into copyright because there was the change from 50 years to 70 years. And now we can rejoice in the fact that they can be free again. This is the new freedom. But because I know the run of the page from my own, I'm going to read it from that one. And I'm probably missing some crucial textual emendations that have been made that are now going to give a completely new reading of this. But here it goes, and then I'll speak a little more about it. Here's a hall where one pays money and goes in, where one hears music among somnolent people who come here after lunch on a hot afternoon. We've eaten beef and pudding enough to live for a week without tasting food. Therefore we cluster like maggots on the back of something that will carry us on. I suppose I should emphasize that this is not only Woolf but Rhoda, predominantly Rhoda speaking here or thinking. Decorous, portly, we have white hair waved under our hats, slim shrews, little bags, clean-shaven cheeks, here and there a military moustache. Not a speck of dust has been allowed to settle anywhere on our broadcloth. Swaying and opening programmes, with a few words of greeting to friends, we settle down like walruses stranded on rocks, like heavy bodies incapable of waddling to the sea, hoping for a wave to lift us, but we're too heavy, and too much dry shingle lies between us and the sea. Who says that Woolf can't be funny? We lie gorged with food, torpid in the heat. Then, swollen but contained in slippery satin, the sea-green woman comes to our rescue. She sucks in her lips, assumes an air of intensity, inflates herself, and hurls herself precisely at the right moment as if she saw an apple and her voice was the arrow into the note. Ah! An axe has split a tree to the core. The core is warm. Sound quivers within the bark. Ah, cried a woman to her lover, leaning from her window in Venice. Ah, ah, she cried. And again she cries, ah. She has provided us with a cry. But only a cry. And what is a cry? Then the beetle-shaped men come with their violins. Wait, count, nod. Down come their bows. And there is ripple and laughter like the dance of olive trees, and then myriad-tongued grey leaves when a seafarer, biting a twig between his lips where the many-backed steep hills come down, leaps on shore. Like, and like, and like. But what is the thing that lies beneath the semblance of the thing? Now that lightning has gashed the tree, and the flowering branch has fallen, and Percival by his death has made me this gift. Let me see the thing. There is a square. There is an oblong. The players take the square and place it upon the oblong. They place it very accurately. They make a perfect dwelling place. Very little is left outside. The structure is now visible. What is inchoate is here stated. We are not so various or so mean. We have made oblongs and stood them upon squares. This is our triumph. This is our consolation. The sweetness of this content overflowing runs down the walls of my mind and liberates understanding. Wonder no more, I say. This is the end. The oblong has been set upon the square. The spiral is on top. We have been hauled over the shingle, down to the sea. The richness of a passage like that reminds us, I think, brings home how completely she reimagines experience. The fierce humour of excess that we have at the beginning of the passage becomes lean, pure, fell as the music starts, like Lily Briscoe's line and triangle at the end of To the Lighthouse. The musicians resolve experience into a geometry that reaches beyond language, but retains language's intensity. Woolf is rapid, flexible, extreme, serene, as she lets us enter another person's experience, our own experience now, the thing that lies beneath the semblance of the thing. That, I think, is why she continues to speak, not only to all of us as readers, but also to her fellow writers, particularly women writers. And tonight we have Ali Smith, one of the most original of all current writers, going to talk to us about Woolf. So it's such a pleasure to be here and to be part of this community of readers. That's what Woolf thrives on, the intimate, the extreme, which is there in the act of reading. So thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. At a Virginia Woolf conference in Scotland the weekend before last, Ian Blythe suggested that Ali Smith might well be one of the 21st century incarnations of the female Shakespeare Woolf looks forward to in a room of one's own. Ali Smith's novels include the critically acclaimed Like. We've just heard something about Like in the passage Gillian read. Hotel World, which won the Encore Award and the inaugural Scottish Arts Council Book of the Year Award. The Accidental, which won the Whitbread Novel of the Year Award. Girl Meets Boy, and shortly the intriguingly titled There But For The. And I note the Woolfian ellipsis is implied but not signified in the title. Ali has published 4 collections of short stories, including Free Love, which won the Saltire First Book of the Year Award, and also 2 plays, The Seer and Just. And it gives me enormous pleasure to ask Ali to speak to you now.
Can you hear me? Yes? Yes, good, okay. I'm going to speak for about 4 minutes, and 3.5 of those is Woolf, not me at all. And the first 10 seconds is Gillian Beer. When I was a student at Aberdeen University, I read a critical book by Walter Allen, the English novel, who dismissed Virginia Woolf for her feminine gasp. When I came first to Cambridge, in my first year at Cambridge, I went to a course on the modern novel given by George Watson, who dismissed Virginia Woolf because she had no plot and wasn't very good.